Hey there. Thank you for joining me for another devotional. Our devotional today comes from an excerpt of the book How the Nations Rage Rethinking Faith and Politics in a Divided Age by Jonathan Leeman. And uh, with all the stuff leading up to the election, politics are on all of our minds. And I really think that this book did an awesome job addressing a few questions that might help us rethink the way that we're looking at politics and the way that we are looking at a lot of the questions that come up. I know for me, for quite a while, like you talk about all the policies, but honestly, it doesn't seem to matter what's said about policies. I have personally rarely been affected by them. No, that's not true of everyone's experience, and it certainly isn't true of all policies. But I have thought for quite a while, instead of just talking about these things that happen at the national and international level, why don't we begin thinking about things closer to home? I've heard a lot of people say that the most important political elections, the most important politics are your local elections, your local politics that almost no one cares about. And I think that this devotional really asked a number of questions that really struck home. He begins this section of his book by mentioning that for the Christian, the most important thing that we have to think about is not what we do. As important as what we do is, there is something that has to come first. That's who we are, the kind of person that we are trying to be. That the things that we do have to flow out of who we are, and so we have to address first who we are, first have to look within and address those things, and only then can we think about looking out and addressing the things that are out there. And he uses this to begin thinking about how we talk about politics. And he says this: Paul asked the Jews of his day, "You who preach against stealing, do you steal?" This is Romans 2:21. I've got a few questions of my own. You who call for immigration reform, do you practice hospitality with visitors in your church who are ethnically or nationally different from you? You who vote for family values, do you honor your parents and love your spouse self-sacrificially? You who speak against abortion, do you also embrace and assist the single mothers in your church? Do you encourage adoption? Do you prioritize your own children over financial comfort? You who talk about welfare reform, do you give to the needy in your congregation? You who proclaim that all lives matter, do all your friends look like you? You who lament structural injustices, do you work against them in your own congregation? Do you rejoice with those who rejoice and weep with those who weep? You who fight for traditional marriage, do you love your wife, cherishing her as you would your own body and washing her with the water of the word? You who are concerned about the economy and the job market, do you obey your boss with a sincere heart, not as a people pleaser, but as you would obey Christ? You who care about corporate tax rates, do you treat your employees fairly? Do you threaten them, forgetting that he who is both their master and yours is in heaven, and that there is no partiality in him? Finally, as you share your opinions about all of these issues on social media, do you gladly share the Lord's Supper with the church member who disagrees? Do you pray for his or her spiritual good? That hit home to me for a couple reasons. First of all, it hit home to me because I have thought about similar questions before, and it was encouraging that someone else asked some of them. Thinking about the other side, thinking about what someone who's thinking on the other side of the issue would say to you, thinking about just thinking about and addressing all of the questions, not just the first question that gets asked, but subsequent questions that we do need to think about as we try to make political decisions that make sense and are coherent. But then also, those are challenging questions. Because I think for a lot of us, we hear policies that we like, that we agree with, even policies that are very good policies. And it's really easy for us to support those policies on a national level and say, laws need to get passed and Congress needs to support this. Those people need to be doing this. But it's very different to say, well, those people need to do this. And if I support this policy, I need to do something about it. It's really easy to say, oh yeah, the government needs to be supporting the poor. We need to be helping make sure that everyone has access to the things that they need. And in your own personal life, just not do anything about it. It's really easy to say that the economy, business matters so much, and put so much emphasis on making sure that the economy is going well, and saying that this is one of the most important political issues in our day. But then look at our financial decisions and not make decisions that would benefit the economy. Look at our work in the world and not think about how that impacts the economy at large. It's really easy to be like, oh, well, here are these really big, lofty things that are way out there that don't really impact me. I'm going to promote those things and not try to make our own hearts better, not try to make us better as people, and not try to make our immediate circles better. Because here's the thing. I individually cannot change the poverty in the U.S. I individually cannot change what life looks like for every child in the U.S. I individually cannot change race relations in the U.S. I cannot change the bitterness, the divide between other people in the U.S. I cannot fix all of these huge national problems. But I can say that in the things that I do, when I have a chance, I'm going to address poverty in my circle. That I will help the kids that are immediately around me, my own and others. That I will, be more just. That I will do the work within myself to be more caring and equal to all people, and to connect with people who aren't like me, to bridge that gap between myself and others. And that I will work within myself to eliminate that bitterness in myself. And then once I've done that work within myself, going to the circle immediately around me and bringing these questions up and saying, maybe it's not on a national scale, but hey, with the people who are immediately around me, what can we do to help some of the kids in our area who are struggling? I believe that all life matters, that all life, no matter what stage of life, is sacred to God. So how can I live that out in my day-to-day life? I believe that God cares for the poor deeply. So how can I live that out in my day-to-day life? And how can I show that to the people in my immediate circle? How can I stretch my immediate circle to say, hey, we look a lot alike. Maybe we'll be benefited by connecting with some people who don't share our skin color and don't share our life experiences and don't share everything that's like us, but that are still children of God like us. And in having these conversations, I've had conversations where I do not agree with a lot of the people around me. I just have different opinions on things. But in those conversations, saying that, you know what, I'm taking the bitterness out. And I'm going to try to help my family and friends take some of the bitterness out. And hopefully, we will be able to all step forward together. It's a challenge to say, hey, instead of looking at the national circle where it's way out there and I might never have influence to speak out there. No, I'm first going to start where I definitely have influence, which is right here. And then I'm going to step to the people who I immediately have influence with. And maybe at some point I will have more influence than that, and I will be able to have influence on a much larger scale. But I've done the work where I definitely have influence right now with myself and those immediately around me. So that when I go to have that larger influence, it will all make sense. Thank you for joining me for today's devotional. God bless you guys. Bye.